on in class yesterday was language. You know, in my last church, I needed an I am police. I had, she's in seminary now. She's going to become an ordained Unity minister in the spring. Her name is Jennifer Sachs, and she was my I am police. I gave my I am talk one Sunday, and then she never let me off the hook. Because I always say things like, I'm sorry, I'm so tired, I really misuse the I am. I don't know if I'm any better now that she's out of my life, but she used to be like, right there, BJ, you know, pay attention to what you're saying. Because the universe will say, oh, you're always tired, you're always exhausted, so be it. Anybody here for me when I gave that talk, I'm alive, and I talked about how there was a period of time when I went through I'm alive, alert, awake, enthusiastic, and I kept saying it and saying it and saying it over and over again for a talk that I was about to give, and before I knew it, I was bouncing off the walls. Remember that? And I didn't know what had happened because I'm usually always tired. So I'm like, oh, I get it. You know, this was a principle in action. I got it. You know, and then I said I had to eventually stop saying it because I needed to get some sleep. So we need to be aware that the universe is always listening to us. And then the last 2 weeks ago, we got to the fourth lesson, which is so, so important to you experiencing the kingdom of heaven on earth. And that's lightening your load. You know, this is all about you feeling worthy. Feeling entitled to your inheritance, to your divine inheritance. Believing that you're sons and daughters of the Most High. Believing that you're children of God. Believing that you're in the same category as Jesus the Christ and Buddha and all the masters. Do you believe it? Do you know it at your very core that you are unconditionally loved by God? So it's all about worthiness. It's about exploring what are the messages that we have gotten through this lifetime that have told us differently and are keeping us from receiving our good. And it's only by paying attention to what it is you really believe about yourself that you can start to change those beliefs and start to lighten your load. So worthiness. I can't tell you how big a block that is to people receiving their prosperity and their abundance. If you don't think you deserve it, do you think you're going to get it? No. You have too much power for that. You don't understand how powerful you are. So we finally come to the fifth principle. And what does she title this? I love it. Give up hope. Give up hope. Oh, well, that'll make it so clear in a minute. If you haven't already read her material or listened to her CD, when I was like, give up hope, I have to talk about that. What does she mean? But I want to start with a story that she has. She starts this lesson with. She says a man was flipping through some classified ads, and he stopped in his tracks at the ad in the auto section. It was advertising a Jaguar for sale for $50. He thought for sure that this must be a misprint, a typo of some kind, but even if it was just missing a couple of zeros, that was still a pretty good deal. He figured if it's not a misprint, I better get on the phone quick. So he called the number, and a woman answered, and he said, do you still have that car? And she said, absolutely. You're actually the first one to call me. He said, is it really $50? She said, absolutely. Come on over and see it. So over he went, and she let him out to the garage, and he was expecting to see, obviously, like a piece of junk. I mean, for $50. But he could get some parts from it, he figured, or the tires, at least. It was worth a look. So he was stunned when she opened the garage door, and there he was, looking at this brilliant, bright, sparkling, shining, silver, mint condition, less than a year old Jaguar. His jaw dropped and he stared at her. $50? And she said, absolutely. You want it? He said, are you kidding? Sold. And wrote her a check on the spot, and he sat down in the driver's seat and started her up, and it was amazing. And before he pulled away, he said, I've got to know. I've got to know. This is obviously a car worth thousands upon thousands of dollars. Why would you sell it for $50? I don't understand. She said, well, it's my husband's car. He had an affair with his secretary. He decided to leave me for her, and they moved off to Mexico. And he didn't even have the courtesy to tell me, face to face or even over the phone. He sent me a note. And he said, you can have the house, you can have everything in it. Just sell my Jack and send me the money. Natural human instinct, yes? If you've done me wrong, right? What am I going to do? I'm going to do you wrong. I'm going to get even. I'm going to get revenge. It's that old covenant way of thinking, right? An eye for an eye. But it is our human nature to exact revenge. But what did the new covenant teach us to do? What did Jesus say? Turn the other cheek. How, right? Or as H.M. Emily Cady teaches us in Unity, in our textbook in Unity, which is Lessons in Truth, she says, give good for perceived evil. And what is that, to give good for perceived evil? Anybody know what that is metaphysically? To what? I haven't taught this yet. To forgive. To forgive. I think that there's two principles that are the most challenging for us in establishing heaven on earth. One is that tithing principle. And I'm not talking about giving 10% of your money to the church. I'm talking about giving to the universe, knowing that it's only through your giving that you will receive in return, that you will be richly blessed in return, however that presents itself to you. That's a tough one for us, right? Especially if we're coming from a lack consciousness, it's hard to think, well, if I give, how am I going to have more? I'll just have less. So that's a big one. But the other really big one that kind of sticks in our throat, right? Some of us, is to forgive. Especially to forgive the unforgivable, which we're going to be talking about in a moment. But this is the fifth principle on the path to prosperity, to forgive. I can guarantee you will not experience heaven on earth. You will not experience prosperity. You will not experience abundance. You won't experience what it is that you are entitled to experience as an heir to the divine kingdom, your divine inheritance, until you learn to forgive. There's no getting around this one. No hopping over it. No exception to the rule. This is a big one. As Robin Ryder says in the lesson, if we do not forgive, that unforgiveness and resentment is like putting our foot down on the hose of the life force. So just picture it. You know, when you stand on a hose, the water's coming through it. If you're heavy enough like me and you stand on it, what happens? The flow stops. There's no quicker way to slam the door on God's good than through unforgiveness. So how do we do it? What does it look like? And does it really have anything to do with abundance? And this is where we come up to this title, this strange title, which I had never heard before. And I've studied forgiveness for 16, 17 years now. And I'm like, give up hope. Give up hope. What is she talking about? Well, this is one of the foundational elements to forgiveness, is realizing this truth. Robin Ryder says, forgiveness happens when we give up all hope for a better past. When you give up all hope for a better past. Because, folks, it has already happened. It's never, ever going to change. Did you hear that when Jill was leading us in the meditation? It is done. There's no way of going back and rewriting